an establishment candidate who will toe the line versus a politically inexperienced businessman who is anything but politically correct. That is how many see the Trump versus Clinton November presidential election. Now that both the Democratic and Republican conventions have ended, what do the two main choices presented say about the state of American democracy? The Democratic Party has been shaken by leaks proving its highest officials unfairly undermined Bernie Sanders' chances of winning the nomination, and the disillusioned are now looking to third parties. The push is for Clinton to be elected just so that Trump isn't. In this edition of the debate, we ask, what does the 2016 election have in store for the United States? Let me now introduce our guests for this debate. We're joined by political commentator Mr. Dean Henderson, who is joining us live from Memphis. And we're also joined by the columnist of the Hill newspaper, Mr. Brent Badowski, who is joining us live from Washington. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us for this debate. Mr. Badowski, I'll start with you. What do you make of the Democratic National Convention and Clinton's policies as she laid them out?
Well, I thought that the convention went very well for Democrats. And by the way, the Republican convention went very well for Republicans. I didn't like it, but Donald Trump gained a little bit after that poll. I think Hillary Clinton will gain a little bit after the convention. And I think it's going to be a close election when we get to Labor Day in early September. I thought her speech was very good. I thought President Obama's speech was very good. I thought that Michelle Obama was fabulous. And I think it was a convention that helped Democrats. They'll get a little lift. And we'll be here in about 10 days, and it'll be a neck-and-neck election, would be my best guess.
Okay, and Mr. Henderson, are you as optimistic about how the DNC worked out?
Yeah, not at all. It's a total disaster. We saw what happened with the Debbie Wasserman Schultz, having to step down with these emails. And then the Clinton campaign, what do? Instead of accepting any kind of responsibility for this, they blame the Russians, and they make us scared of the Russians. Well, thank God the Russians at least were able to reveal this stuff to the American people. I mean, do the American people really want to know what's going on, or do they just not care that she's totally crooked, corrupt, warmonger? So, it's a total disaster. Bernie got railroaded, everybody knows it, and then he kind of at the end just kind of took a knee, and a lot of people are real disappointed about that and don't understand why. Which is why, she's going to lose the election. Mr. Badowski can laugh all he wants, but he just lost the election for the Democrat Party by supporting Hillary Clinton, so good job. Way to go, Democrats. You did it again. You learned how to lose. Good losers.
Oh, can I answer that?
Sure, go ahead.
Can I answer that? I'd like that. What Mr. Henderson just said about Democrats not taking responsibility is the greatest collection of nonsense, falsehoods, and comic opera that I have ever heard. I was on an American TV debating two conservatives about that. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was fired from the DNC. That's taking responsibility. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was not allowed to speak at the Democratic National Convention. That's taking responsibility. As for blaming the Russians, I ought to be up here, instead of debating Mr. Henderson, you ought to get our friend Alexander Nekrasov back, the Russian who used to work for Putin. He could take the pro-Trump position, and I'll debate him and take the pro-Hillary position. You bet that's a legitimate issue. You bet that's going to hurt Donald Trump. And Mr. Henderson can say what he wants, and Vladimir Putin can say what he wants. And Alexander Nekrasov, if he comes to debate me, can say what he wants. Americans won't want a president who is the Vladimir Putin candidate to be president of America, where he sets espionage against America to elect Donald Trump. That's just preposterous. But as for not taking responsibility, the reason I was laughing is that's so funny, so false, and so wrong about a Debbie Wasserman Schultz who was fired at the Democratic National Committee. If that ain't taking responsibility, I don't know what is. And we have to have some standard of truth and accuracy in what we say on these shows. Right, Mr. Henderson? You know she was fired. Don't you
Mr. Badowski, to be fair though, Mr. Badowski, just because somebody was made a scapegoat out of and was fired, that doesn't mean that the issues that were highlighted even in the leaks were not important. There is a clear
no, they are
path,
important.
a clear path of trying to undermine Bernie Sanders' nomination. So how should Americans respond to that clear undermining of Bernie Sanders?
No, the Democratic National Committee apologized to Bernie Sanders. When was the last time you heard Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin apologizing to anybody? They apologized. Bernie Sanders gave a rousing, strong, and sincere endorsement of Hillary Clinton. He shouted at the top of his lungs how important it is to elect Hillary Clinton. You can't ask for a better witness for Hillary Clinton than Bernie Sanders. Trust me, there's no question about that.
Okay, Mr. Henderson, I of course want to get your reaction to that. I also want to ask you then, do you think that Trump is the Vladimir Putin nominee?
No, of course not. I mean, I think most of the world sees this election the way they've seen many, many American elections in the past recently. It's just, you pretty much have to be the establishment choice to become the nominee of either party. So this whole notion that Trump somehow is this outsider, you know, is total hogwash. He's a billionaire. He's made his living, you know, bankrupting corporations, having the government bail him out. He's rude, he's egocentric, he's narcissistic. He's exploited Polish workers on his job site. He's stiffed contractors in New Jersey who didn't pay him. Nobody likes Trump, okay? The problem here, Mr. Badowski, and these kind of people, they're so scared of their own shadow, just like the Democrats have been for years. This is why we couldn't get Jesse Jackson in. This is why we couldn't get Jerry Brown in. This is why we can't support a Palestinian state. This is why now all of a sudden Mr. Badowski's with the Democrat Party and they're telling us the Russians are coming, the Russians are coming. This sounds like the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan. So what happened to you people? Why are you so scared of the Russians? We should be friends with the Russians. At least Trump has that right. We should be friends with the Iranians. At least Trump has that right. But you want to what? You want to get behind Hillary Clinton, who took us to war in Libya, who took us to war in Iraq, who took us to war in Syria. Total disaster. Wasted how many millions and billions of dollars? How many people died? How many Americans died? How far in debt do we go? And you somehow think that just because Bernie Sanders gets a few things in the platform and endorses her, it's going to be all better and he'll be able to hold her to it. It's like Alice in Wonderland with you people. You never learn the lessons. I ran for Congress in 2004 in Missouri's 8th District as a progressive Democrat against the Iraq War, against the Patriot Act, pull out of the WTO, just like Trump says. Now he's the progressive, I guess. And guess what? Didn't get any support from these Democratic mainstream people at all. Still got more votes than anybody ever did against this woman I ran against for 20 years, was an incumbent. They just never seem to learn the lesson, these Democrats, that if we're going to win an election, we have to be bold. We have to go with the candidate who's bold, who's clean, who really speaks his mind, who's not interested in politically correct and getting as many Hispanics to speak in Spanish as we can. And then what? Picks Tim Kaine, this center-right, corrupt 9/11 Commission guy who's a total crook, just like her, another slap in the face to Bernie supporters. I'll guarantee you, they just lost the election. Why? Because many people like me who supported Sanders, who are really left, who are really the real Democrats, the FDR Democrats, the Truman Democrats that we need to come back in this country, take over this party, we just got railroaded again, and they cheated. And I don't vote for cheaters, and neither should anyone else. So go for Jill Stein and the Green Party. That's all we got.
Mr. Badowski, Mr. Henderson there makes a fair point because, as much as people may not like Donald Trump, the possibility of Donald Trump coming into office, Hillary Clinton is not very much liked either by the American public. And in fact, I was reading an article today, I believe it was in the Washington Post, where it said that this is the most negative election in recorded U.S. history. Both candidates have horrible poll ratings amongst the general public. So certainly Clinton is not an angel. It's just a choosing the lesser of two evils, which is kind of sad, isn't it, in 2016 to say that about the American democracy?
Oh, absolutely. Look, this is not my choice of what we should be doing, who the Democrats should have nominated. I would have done a lot of things different. I opposed the Iraq War before most Americans even knew that George W. Bush and Cheney were planning it, and I opposed the Patriot Act. So I don't need any lectures from my colleague here about those things. What I will say is that if he wants to support Jill Stein, that is political suicide for the progressive cause. Very few Bernie people and liberals agree with that. If he wants to support Jill Stein, that is the same as Al Gore losing in Florida because Ralph Nader ran a similar kind of campaign. And the effect of that is Bush became president. We got the Iraq War. We got the Patriot Act. We got a right-wing Supreme Court. We got a lot of bad stuff that Bush brought simply because people like Mr. Henderson in those days opposed Al Gore. They didn't think he was perfect either. So, look, it is a lesser of the evils election, and no question about it. We have the most distrusted Democrat running for office in modern history, running against the most disliked Republican. That's what the facts and the data tell us. There's no doubt about that. That wasn't my idea. We have now a choice. And I'd ask Mr. Henderson, would you rather have a Supreme Court with a majority of justices like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or would you rather have who's a great progressive to those in our audience who may not know who she is, or would you rather have a Supreme Court made of a majority of justices like Clarence Thomas, a reactionary? Now, if Mr. Henderson gets his way, you're going to have a reactionary Supreme Court for the next 20 years. I think that is one heck of a bad idea.
Okay, so Mr. Henderson, you know, I've seen the argument you put forth as well about supporting third parties, and especially third-party candidates such as Jill Stein. But does Mr. Badowski have a point that if people go the route of third parties, that Trump will come into office?
Well, my whole point is it doesn't matter who comes into office. You know, it's going to burn. It's going to be a train wreck. The economy is going to go off a cliff. Probably in September, October of this year. We're going to have this huge derivatives bubble that's been building. It's going to burst. I mean, if you look at 2000 when Clinton, and by the way, Clinton was no better than Bush. What did we get out of that? Glass-Steagall repealed. We got welfare reform. We got NAFTA passed. We joined the WTO. Boy, that was a real picnic. So, you know, again, what's the difference between the Clintons and the Bushes? There is none. Wake up. I mean, people have to get out of their sort of stupor about, you know, picking the MSNBC corner or the Fox News corner. These are two corners controlled by the same corporations. Don't you understand? And the only way we're going to get out of this is by maybe creating a viable third party, maybe by, you know, supporting Jill Stein. Maybe she can get 10% this time, and maybe we can have hope. But we have to vote our hopes, not our fears. That's the whole point. And ever since the Kennedy assassination, Americans have just been plagued with fear. And this is the argument I hear over and over about the Supreme Court. You know, the Supreme Court. It's like everything hinges on the Supreme Court. And because of that, we have to vote the lesser of two evils. And it just doesn't wash with me anymore. I'm an American. I have my rights. I can vote for whoever I want. And guess what? It's not my fault if Hillary Clinton loses this election, because she's going to lose anyway. Just like Al Gore would have lost anyway without Ralph Nader. He was a terrible candidate. He's a terrible candidate. He's following Bill Clinton, who wrecked our economy.
That is factually incorrect.
On behalf of the corporations who let the banks double in size. Yes, it is true. Yes, it is true. And I'm not making up anything. He repealed Glass-Steagall. Clinton did. True. He repealed welfare reform. Did he not do these things, Mr. Badowski? Or are you living in some different planet than me? Because he did all those things. He passed NAFTA.
If Ralph Nader was not on the ballot in Florida,
he was a poor candidate. Don't blame Ralph Nader. You don't blame Ralph Nader for. Al Gore was a poor candidate.
It's a fact.
Just like Hillary Clinton is a poor candidate. Nobody wants to vote for a poor candidate.
I know some of you fellas have a problem with facts. I accept that. That's your problem. The point is, though, if you don't know the difference between the Supreme Court composed of a majority of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, really, you know, with all due respect, I ought to be here debating Mr. Nekrasov, giving the Russian point of view in favor of Trump, because he'd be saying the same darn thing. Now, come on, bro, get real. Now, I'll give him the rest of my time to answer your last question, which he didn't answer, but gave a lot of cliches, platitudes, and evasions not to answer. Do you want a Supreme Court that Clinton will appoint that will be a majority of progressives? Do you want a Supreme Court that Trump will appoint that will be a majority of reactionaries? And, bro, if you don't know the difference between them, I actually will pray for you.
Mr. Henderson?
Yeah, well, I suppose you will. I'll go right ahead. But the point is there will not be progressives on the Supreme Court. Hillary Clinton will not put any progressives on the Supreme Court. Sotomayor, a progressive. These people are all members of the elite.
That is a lie,
and you need
son.
to start. You need to get out of your beltway bubble, and you need to start dealing with facts, because it's not a lie. What do we got from them? Oh, we got Roe v. Wade still.
Henderson?
Oh, thank God. Is that all you people care about? Is the LGBT agenda and the Hispanic agenda and the what? I mean, and then Hillary says, "Oh, I'm against the Muslim ban, but I'll bomb the hell out of Gaddafi and drag him behind a jeep." What kind of progressive stuff is that? See, you don't even know what progressive means, because you live in the Beltway and you think that there's this kind of left-right thing that goes on in the Beltway, but it's all fascism, it's all corporate banker controlled, and it's all controlled by K Street. And so you have no idea what happens out here in the real world. So you need to get off the Beltway and come out here in the real world, get your hands dirty for change, and then maybe you can lecture me about progressive politics a little bit.
Okay, Mr. Brodowski, if you
I
allow me to
just
come in
can't
here,
I
Mr.
did really
Brodowski,
well,
because
people out
if
here
you don't
got
know
some
the
sense.
difference
I do want to,
between the-
gentlemen,
if
I
you
do
think
apologize for
Hillary
interrupting your
Clinton is
train of
gonna
thought.
We live in a bubble out
Mr.
here.
Brodowski, if you allow me to come in here, I wanted to ask you, the point that Mr. Henderson made and the point I asked you about earlier as well, why not allow a third party to come in and be given a fair chance? Be it, I've heard names like Gary Johnson as well, and of course Jill Stein is being heard of a lot, especially when it comes to Bernie Sanders as an alternative to Bernie Sanders. That is, why not have that third party choice? Because many people say the problem with American democracy is the fact that you only have this two-party choice.
Oh, if the third party that was progressive had a chance to win, I would probably support it myself. The problem is, in the real world, and I deal, unlike my friend here, with facts, that we don't have that choice. We have the choice between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And I will tell you, if Mr. Henderson thinks that Hillary Clinton will appoint conservatives, he doesn't know the slightest thing of what he's talking about, with all due respect.
Okay, so I'm trying to, Mr. Henderson, trying to understand this. If we do not move to this third parties and we have Trump that comes into power, what does that mean post-elections then? Either Trump or Clinton, in fact, in the White House. What does that mean for foreign policy, especially because, of course, we're talking to a global audience here?
It's a total disaster. I mean, the whole thing is a total disaster because, you know, Clinton will be worse. Clinton's foreign policy will be worse than Donald Trump's foreign policy. And I know the MSNBC hand-wringers don't want to hear this.
Oh, boy.
But it's just, all you have to do is look at the facts. Yeah, it's the facts. Was it Trump that wanted us to invade Libya? Was it Trump that took us to Syria? Was it Trump that went into Iraq? At least Trump wants to be friends with the Russians. So, but Trump's no better, yeah, because he's basically a white supremacist fascist, and so he's going to the white people will get all the preference, and it's just a total disaster. But this is the thing.
And you'll let him get
You saw what
elected?
happened in this election. They cheated, and it wasn't just. Excuse me, I think it's my turn to talk, Mr. Brodowski, with all your arrogance and pompous comments. We saw what happened with the cheating. We saw Hillary Clinton not only with the DNC, the emails, but no. I was in Iowa knocking door to door for Bernie. I saw how they cheated in Des Moines. I saw how they cheated in Nevada. The whole thing's rigged. So the whole thing has to be changed. Then you come down to the roll call at the Dem convention. The numbers don't even add up. Somehow Bernie gets 81% in Utah, but Hillary gets just about as many delegates. The whole thing is rigged. See, and that's the thing that has to be fixed, and that's what we have to fix. And that's why third party is important, because the whole party has to be broken up. I thought at one time, and with Bernie, maybe we could take back this Democrat Party. But I no longer think we can. I think we're going to have to just break up the whole thing. We got to hope look, the Republican Party's imploded. That's the good news. It's in little pieces. But you know what? The Democrat Party needs to be in little pieces too after what I just witnessed, because we cannot live with this kind of cheating and this kind of rigging elections in a true democracy. And if we live with it, then we have ourselves to blame for this choice we have to make, and it's because of this fear, voting for fear instead of voting for your hopes, for your dreams. This is what we should vote for. This is what America was founded on, not fear, hopes and dreams, not fear. And we have to get back to that. We have to be grounded. We have to be, but also looking forward, and that's progressivism, not sort of accepting the lesser of two evils. There's nothing progressive about that.
Okay, Mr. Brodowski, so for the global audience of the rest of us who are not within the United States, how should we look at Trump versus Clinton? Does it matter who is in office post-November? Because, you know, at the end of the day, Clinton has quite a warmongering track record as well.
It makes there's a tremendous difference. Donald Trump supports torture. Donald Trump would abolish or reverse the Geneva Convention on Torture. He will commit what every international lawyer would agree would be war crimes from the United States. That's Donald Trump. And I have to laugh. My colleague here calls him a fascist and white supremacist, but wants him to get elected by the very things that he is doing, because Jill Stein doesn't have a chance, and he knows that. So there is a huge difference. Donald Trump is a guy who insults Hispanics, insults blacks, insults the handicapped. He's a guy who praises the North Korean dictator, praises Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin praises Donald Trump. Anybody that can't see the difference between him and Hillary Clinton ought to get into a new business. I'm sorry.
Okay, gentlemen, we'll have to leave that as our final comment, but of course we do appreciate both of you taking your time out and giving us your contributions. That was political commentator Mr. Dean Henderson, who had been speaking to us live from Memphis, and we were also joined by columnist at The Hill, Mr. Brent Badowski, who had been speaking to us live from Washington. And of course, viewers, we appreciate you watching as well. Until next time, good night.